there's a few rules that people are buzzing about. And one thing that people are talking about certainly is the addition of the alternative, the drop serve. So why don't we just jump right in there? Let's start with that one. Why don't you give us a basic overview of that rule, Don?
Okay, so if you've been in pickleball for a while, you know that Steve Peranto has promoted this as an option for years. They finally looked at it and said, "Okay, we're gonna try it this year and make it." And you notice in the rule book or in the change document it says provisional drop serve. So it's on a beta test basis, so to speak. So it is allowed this year, and we're going to see how it goes. But what it is, it's basically this. You can hold the ball, the server has to, not the partner. The server can hold the ball as high as you can reach, okay? And then just let it fall out of your hand. The point is you can't, and I don't know if y'all can see my hand, you can't propel it downward to create more speed. But as high as you can reach, even on your tippy toes, you let the ball fall out of your hand, okay? The ball falls to the ground and bounces. It can bounce anywhere, inside, outside the court, does not matter. And here's the key phrase, but I know we're going to get questions on it. After that ball bounces, nothing matters but the feet, okay? The current rules of, feet can't be touching the baseline or the court or outside the extensions, that's still the same. But as far as paddle above wrist, wrist above paddle, upward arc, contact and not above the waist, none of that matters. You can do a slicing, chopping, backspin, downward arcing serve if you want, okay? So again, once that ball bounces, nothing matters other than the feet. Just make sure you're touching where you're supposed to. Also, you can switch at any time you want for the sake of this presentation, we'll call it the normal serve, right? Or the provisional drop serve. So I can do the drop serve one time, and the very next time I can do the normal serve, okay? So that's it. The key factors are this. Both the ref and the receiver must see the release of the ball, okay? If the ref doesn't see it, receiver doesn't see it, it's got to be a replay. So we got to see the release of the ball, okay? And as long as you don't propel it downwards, once it bounces, serve it, have at it. That's basically it. Now, another thing, somebody says, well, does it still have to be below the waist or not above the waist? None of that matters. If you drop it and you crouch down low, that ball could probably technically bounce above your waist. Go ahead and hit it. Nothing matters after the bounce other than the feet.
Let me ask some specifics. These are some of the things that I've been asked in some of the questions that I have. Let's talk about that drop. Okay. What are the rules surrounding the drop? Like perhaps where does it have to happen, as well as, let's start there. Let's start where does it have to have it, as well as anything else about the drop that you would like us to know.
Okay, so the real quick bullet points are, you can't propel it downwards as high as you can reach. Let it basically fall out of your hand, roll out of your hand, or I may as well cover this now. They are going to allow that COVID serve where you can put the ball on the paddle, sling it up in the air, come around and serve it just on the serve, okay? But even if you're holding the ball on the paddle face, just tilt your paddle, let it roll off. So it needs to fall naturally by gravity to the ground. Where does it bounce on the ground? Does not matter. On the court, outside the extension lines, does not matter. So as far as the release of the ball, and it needs to be visible to the ref and receiver, okay? Other than that, that's it. And the server has to do it. You can't have Jeff Warnick reaching up high and dropping the ball for Sue Wong to serve. So that's basically the concept of the release.
Okay, let's talk about that COVID serve. I have a question real quick there because we've got somebody here who does it in our group. On that one, he actually is taking it and propelling it up. Is that allowed, that the paddle gets to move up, or does that have to be a drop as well?
That serve is what we would call the normal serve. Like if I take my left hand and toss the ball up, that's what they're allowing, because technically by rule, doing that on the paddle face is an illegal carry. Okay. But they're trying, so they changed that rule this year. That now it says after the serve, blah, 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 illegal carry. Okay. So they're allowing you to carry that ball on the face of the paddle just so you can sling it up in the air so you don't have to touch the ball. Okay. So you can sling it up in the air like you would be tossing the ball up on a normal serve. Now, if you want to do the drop serve, you can put the ball on the paddle and you can raise it high as you want, but you have to let it roll off. For the drop serve, you can't propel it upwards or downwards. You can reach high and just let go, whether it's let go with your hand or roll it off the paddle face.
Okay, so we're talking really two different things, right? The one we're talking about, the COVID serve, the old rules still apply to that.
Yes.
The drop serve are the new rules.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we've got that one. Now let's talk about. Go ahead. It looked like you had something you were going to add.
I see a really good question here. Very pertinent. So let's say the ball bounces, okay, and you serve. Can the ball bounce twice and then you serve? Why not? There's no rule against it. I mean, it's just going to bounce lower, so it's going to make it harder to serve. But the point is, once that ball drops and bounces, you can let it bounce again. You can let it bounce. There's no limit to the number of bounces before you serve. Also, let's say this, and this is in the change document as of last night. Let's say a person is doing the drop serve and they propel it downward. It bounces and they go, oh, crap, I wasn't supposed to do that. They catch it and they raise their hand again and drop it legally and they serve. No fault. No fault. Because the first time throwing it downward, that could be just you bouncing the ball. So that's pretty much every aspect about the release. So
okay.
And Don, sorry, CJ, but what I saw also was the thing about the drop was interesting, right? Because not only can you drop as many times as you want, you can drop it, and then maybe hit it out of the air, whatever you want to do within the 10 seconds, right? Really, the only constraint is as long as you haven't exceeded 10 seconds from the score call, you can do whatever you want.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. I'm just kind of looking at my notes. Now, let's talk about this. This is an alternative serve, right? This is not required, and you could mix up with the regular serve and this serve. Is that accurate?
That is completely accurate. You have two options this year. You can do one or both, switch them up anytime you want.
Okay.
It's going to be the Wild West out there, CJ. It's going to be like, drop it once, drop it, let it bounce 2 times, throw it in, whatever, boom. It'd be crazy. It'd be awesome. It'd be crazy.
So, one of the other things that, and you and I talked about this before I even saw the rules, you said this is provisional for this year. So what does provisional mean?
Originally, they didn't put the word provisional in there, but then they decided to do it to let players know and everyone know that this is basically a test for the next year. If it's accepted well and a lot of complaints and everybody likes it, then they'll probably make it a permanent. But I think it's the only time since 2015 that I've seen the rule book basically say, this is provisional. We're going to give it a try this year and see how it goes.
All right, cool. Tony, what questions have you got for Don? What did I miss?
Well, I had a couple little questions. I'm going to tell you, Don, my personal feeling about this. I'm still figuring out the whole thing about I can drop it 17 times or something, right? I mean, that's a little weird to me, but the concept of a drop serve, right, or a serve that is allowed to bounce. I know they're not called the bounce serve because of the propulsion part, but the bounce serve idea or the drop serve idea to me is a positive addition to the sport because it allows players who, especially when you're getting started and you're still learning the game, to bounce the ball and serve. It doesn't create a competitive advantage. So I'm a big fan of it. And I don't know if you know this, Don, but I have a video out there on service hips. My advice on the service hips is bounce the ball in practice, right? Just to, drop it, drop it so you get the rhythm of the serve. So I think I'm a big fan of it right now. But let me ask you this. So you talked about the sling serve, and I appreciate that. But one of the things that I found interesting, and it's not necessarily maybe the drop serve specific, but going to the serve, the same with the serve is they removed the navel, right, from the rule. Like the rule used to be the waist is the navel. So I'm not really sure what the waist is anymore. Just well, waist, I guess. But
see, I've got my own feelings about that, but to me, I'll be honest with you. I'm always going to be honest with you. I thought the way of the navel was easier to detect, especially if someone has a little gut on them like me and wears a tight shirt. I can see that little circle of their navel. Sometimes I don't know exactly where a person's waist is, but they wanted to remove both words and just go with one word. So after talking, it seems that most refs felt like the waist was easier to define. So they just took the word navel out. Now it's just waist.
Would you agree the waist is a little bit lower than the navel? Like, are you looking as a ref? I mean, let me ask you this way. So put your ref, like when you're looking, are you saying, like, to me, it's not, but it's like 1.5 inches or 2 inches, I think. If I know what the waist is, I'm not sure, you know?
In my opinion, when I was voicing my opinion on this, to me, the waist is where, like on a man, it's where your belt would go.
Right.
Okay. Typically, that's lower than the navel. Surprisingly, a lot of other refs felt like, oh, no, the waist is higher than the navel. So, 6 to 1, half a dozen to the others, my dad would say, and they just said, well, we're just going to go with waist. So,
All right.
here we're talking again for refs. I'll say this. I don't get bent out of shape on trying to really precisely, oh, that was just above your waist. It has to be blatant for me to call it. So